I'm Jody Osman. I'm Chief Growth Officer at Propeller Group. So we help agencies, media companies, and technology businesses to drive reputation and growth. So I guess a combination of PR, content marketing, and new business. And we work quite closely with a few different partners, and one of them being Coolia. I guess on behalf of clients, and a lot of our clients use Coolia as a tool that integrates nicely with different CRM platforms, but helps in terms of being able to send out email campaigns, targeted outreach. Obviously, with that comes lots of exciting opportunities, but lots of pitfalls as well to avoid. So today is very much an interactive session to look at some of the best tips for best practice, sort of how you can increase deliverability, increase open rates, increase responses and replies, but also make sure you don't fall foul of any sort of things you shouldn't be doing. And I think particularly that's been top of mind over the last couple of months with recent updates rolled out by Google and sort of just some of the providers to make sure that people are abiding by best practice. So good to sort of remind us all of that. I think a lot of it does kick in at certain scale, but still, I think as agencies, we should be just adopting best practice. So I'm going to pass you over to Andrew to sort of run the session as we've already started with some of the introductions with people. It's interactive, so just feel free to sort of dive in with any questions, and it'd be good sort of through the session to get your sort of experiences and thoughts and anything you've seen either do well or struggle with, as well as also just get a feel for some of the tools you might be using out there, which is useful as a reference point in terms of getting tips from people on tools you're using or how they can all join up together in terms of building the ideal tool stack. So over to you, Andrew.
Cool, thanks, Jody. And it's you led in there perfectly because Jess, funny enough, she sent me a request yesterday or the day before yesterday for a quote for the BD 100 handbook, and my quote was very much about endorsing how free stacks are so much better than single vendor solutions. They're more efficient, they cost less, they're more flexible, they're more agile, and they deliver better results. And Jody there mentioned the different tools you need to have in your arsenal. So a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today is talking about some of those individual tools. It's not a sales pitch for Coolia. Coolia is one of those tools, but there's all the other kind of infrastructure you need in place in order to ensure your best deliverability in your campaigns, get the results. So we're going to start today by talking a little bit about what happens when you send out a campaign. And by a campaign, I mean an email campaign. And traditionally, you get the marketing department and they will send out large scale campaigns. You'll have the new business, you'll have your business developers, your BDs, sending out smaller sized campaigns. But at the end of the day, it's all emails going out to an audience. Now, there's a lot of technical hoops that you have to jump through before getting any email sent out. Whether that's sending a one-to-one email through Gmail, or if that's sending out to 100,000 contacts on MailChimp, a lot of those hoops are still the same. And you've got to be aware of them. Try and make it as easy as possible. The tools make it as easy as possible to set these technical hoops up. And we'll walk through those today. But before we get on to the technical things, it's really useful to understand how emails have evolved over time. So I come from a background, back in the day, 15, 20 years ago, I would happily send out 1 million emails to a cold audience, a warmish audience, and get great results. And it'd be a standard email. It went out to everybody, exactly the same. And we would get responses and we would get new business. And that worked then. It doesn't work now. The reason it doesn't work now is because email has become a far, far more channel for marketing and for sales. And what I mean by that is when you send out your email campaigns, even if you're sending it to 10 or 100 contacts, not big audiences, the response from the ESPs and the spam walls are exactly the same. So the likes of Gmail, the likes of Outlook, Google, the likes of Spam Assassin, the likes of Barracuda and Mimecast, what they'll do is they will take a holistic helicopter view of your email campaigns. because they're not looking at just one company or one contact receiving an email. What they're looking at is the consolidation of all their accounts. Hundreds of thousands, millions of businesses use something like Gmail, Workspace, and Google will be looking at all the email activity across all of their corporate clients, all of their mailboxes at any one time, and they'll be using AI, so they'll be getting real-time feedback on what's happening with those emails. So you'll send out a campaign, and let's say Gmail, for example, will pass some of your emails straight into the recipient's inbox. Some of those emails will go into spam, some of them will go into promotions. Okay. And then Google will sit back and they will watch and they will see what happens with those emails. Do the emails get replies? Do they get forwarded? Do they get marked as important? Are emails clicked? Are they opened multiple times? If they're in spam or in the promotions, are they taken out and put in the primary mailbox? All of those behaviors are then used to determine where the rest of the emails go. And if you're seeing a really high engaging campaign, if you've targeted it, if it's personalized, if it's relevant, if it's responding to the pain points of the audience, then you create a virtuous cycle. You see more and more of your emails going into the primary mailbox. You see more responses. You see better traction. You see more meetings booked, more opportunities coming into your diary, and that's what you want to see. You want to start somewhere and build up. Flipping that, the inverse of that is if you send out a poorly targeted campaign with generic content, no personalization, highly irrelevant communications, nobody's going to take that out of spam. You're going to see people actively moving it into spam, registering spam complaints, and spam complaints now are increasingly important. And you're going to see your mailbox and your domain reputation deteriorate. And you're going to see more and more of your emails landing in spam. You're going to see open rates, response rates drop. And that is a negative cycle. And that's only going to end up in one place. And that is, your communications becoming completely worthless. So from everything I say today, and we're going to be talking a lot about technical infrastructure, we're going to be talking about tools, the core kind of message I want to get across before we even start on that is it's all about that relevant communication. So about targeting, it's about personalization, it's about making sure that your emails resonate with the audience that you're sending them to. Because if you're not doing that, everything else we talk about today is pointless. It becomes redundant. So there we go. So that's my initial kind of opening gambit. Now, one of the questions we often get, and we're an email marketing platform, but we also do outreach, managed outreach for our clients. We get asked, what is the difference between outreach, cold outreach, and spam? Is it just a euphemism? Do we talk about cold outreach, but really we mean spamming? And what is the difference? And it's always been quite a hard conversation to have because it's like that definition of pornography. I know pornography when I see it. I can't remember if some US person said that. Same goes for spam. We know what spam looks like when we see it, but we often try and kind of fool ourselves. But what we're doing is not spam. Yeah, we're sending out an email campaign to 1,000 people who have never heard of me, and I'm sending out a one-size-fits-all message. But this is relevant. It's absolutely relevant, and we try and persuade ourselves that what we're doing is right. But actually, there is with Google's update last month, there was a very clear definition of what is considered spam by Google, and it's a bulk sender combined with spam indicators. So if you're a bulk sender, Google said, okay, you're sending over 5,000 emails within a 24-hour period to personal mailboxes. That gets you flagged as a bulk sender. Now, if you have a greater than 0.3% spam complaint rate, and that is 3 spam complaints within every 1,000 emails that are sent out, then you are a spammer. The people that are receiving your emails do not like those emails. They're considering them spam. And if you get that greater than 0.3% spam complaint rate, you will find your emails being blocked by the likes of Yahoo and Google. So they've laid down a very strict structure of what they consider to be spam. Now, historically, those metrics have always kind of been in the background. We've always known that the target really but what you should be aiming for in terms of spam complaint rates is less than 0.1%. So the 0.3% is actually quite a low bar. You shouldn't be aiming for your email deliverability spam complaint rates to be less than 0.3%. You should be aiming for less than 0.1%. Less than 0.2% is giving you a little bit of a warning signal saying, guys, there's something not landing quite right here. And if you are in the 0.3 or higher percent, then you're going to be in trouble. If you fall foul of those criteria, your emails will be blocked. Now, if you are registered as a bulk sender by Google and Yahoo, that is an indelible mark against your domain. Once you are registered as or flagged as a bulk sender, you will forever be in Google's and Yahoo's eyes a bulk sender. So you've got to be aware of that, because you are then held up to a higher standard than anyone else. Being a bulk sender is not a bad thing. You know, many thousands of businesses every day are bulk senders, and that's fine. You've got to be aware that you don't want to accidentally sleepwalk into being flagged as a bulk sender. So we have clients in staffing and recruitment, for example, where they send out client-focused B2B campaigns. The marketing team focuses on the B2B side of the business, but the staffing and recruitment consultants, they send out a ton of consumer-facing personal email addresses to candidates. And what we found in this particular instance, I won't name them, but those two weren't talking to each other. You know, the sales and the marketing teams weren't talking to each other, and therefore the consultants were sending out thousands and thousands of emails a day, personal emails. The other side of the business, marketing, were also sending out emails in bulk, and they were finding that they were actually tipped themselves into that sending threshold at over 5,000 within a 24-hour period by accident, just because they weren't communicating internally about what each side of the business was doing. So you've got to be aware of that as well. If you're a big B2B brand, you're running events. As an example there, lots of people sign up to events, lots of people sign up and download PDFs and assets and guides using their personal email addresses. So if they're doing that, that means you're potentially sending out personal email address communications. You could get flagged as a bulk sender, even if you are primarily B2B. So these are a couple of considerations you need to have in place there. Now, I'm going to assume everyone around the table today is going to be primarily B2B focused. Is that right? Yeah, see lots of nodding heads. But you will be serving clients that are B2C consumer brands. So, you know, when they're asking these questions, it's worth having these answers available to you. Now, the Google Yahoo update, I'm going to skirt over this because, you know, you are primarily B2B. If you are a bulk sender, you really just, you know, held up to that higher standard. You have to have things like SPF, DMARC, DKIM. These are all techie acronyms, but essentially they're ways of you verifying that you are happy for emails to go out being sent from your domain. You have to have what's known as one-click unsubscribe. Now, one-click subscribe isn't just having an unsubscribe link in your marketing emails. It's actually having a unsubscribe mechanism built into the email header. So you'll see it right at the top where it says sent from, reply to. You'll also see an unsubscribe link there that is not part of the email content. That is compulsory if you're sending transactional or marketing emails and you're flagged as a bulk sender. And you also need to have that less than 0.3% spam complaint rate. Now, even if you're not a bulk sender, and even if you are sending B2B emails, you need to make sure that you are sending emails that are well received and fall below that level. Now, who here, out of curiosity, has Google Postmaster Tools enabled? Show of hands. Does anybody have Postmaster Tool enabled? I can only see a few boxes and windows at the top. I'm not seeing any hands up. It is your best friend for these kind of conversations. It's free. Literally just go to Google Postmaster Tools and register your domain. All you need to do is pop it. They'll give you a CNAME record or a text record to put on your DNS to verify you are who you say you are. And then you will have access to a wealth of user data or complaint data. So you will see if your domain is sending out emails and you are above that 0.3% threshold, or the 0.2% threshold, or the 0.1%, or whatever that threshold is. Google will tell you what your domain reputation is. And that's really handy. And I'm going to come on to domain reputation later. You'll see IP reputation, loads of really useful metrics, and it's just good housekeeping. So first thing, take away from today, just get that set up. It's free, it takes 5 minutes, it gives you retrospective data as well, and it's really, really helpful. Okay. I'm now going to get onto the more boring stuff, but before I do that, any questions about what we've spoken about so far? Fantastic. Okay, so I'm now going to talk about the kind of a technical infrastructure you have to have in place for sending emails out. Now there's technical, and then there's the process side of things. I'll cover technical first. The way we always describe your technical infrastructure is it's a pyramid. So at the very top of that pyramid, you have what's known as your IP reputation. Now, when you send out emails, doesn't matter, if you're sending it from your Gmail account, or you're sending it through Coolio, or you're sending it out through Marketo or MailChimp or whatever, there is a server sitting behind that email that is sending that email out on your behalf. And that server will have a reputation. And that reputation is known as IP reputation. So I'm just going to do a screen share. And I'm going to share. So can everybody see that? You've got a picture of a 10 out of 10 and a boat. Go. So it's a free tool. It's called mail-tester.com. And it's a lovely piece of kit. And all you do is you send out an email. And one of the process points we're always going to talk about is test, test, and test. So send out an email to Mail Tester. This is one I just sent out earlier. Well, it says 0 minutes ago. It wasn't 0 minutes ago. It was 25 minutes ago. So this is an email that's gone out through Coolio. And you can see lots of green ticks here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the "you're not blocklisted" bit, and I'm going to extend that. And you can see there is a IP address. So just a string of numbers, and that is representative of the server that has sent the email. So you can see there that that IP address is not listed on any block lists, which is good. Nice tick there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that IP and I'm going to jump across to another tool, which is called SenderScore. And again, it's a free tool. So none of this is costing, Google Postmaster Tools, Mail Tester, SenderScore. It's all free. Really easy to test things. Just pop in the IP address from the email that you've sent, and then check to see what your score is. And as you can see there, SenderScore, the domain reputation there is 100%, which is brilliant. That's exactly what it should be. If it's above 90%, congratulations, you're using Coolio. Well done. If it's above 80%, you're still good. 80% plus is fine. If you're seeing anything between 70 and 80, it's a bit of a red flag. The ESPs of this world will start paying more attention to your emails, and they will start kind of holding them up to higher sender thresholds and reputational thresholds. If you're seeing lower than 70%, you really need to have a conversation with your ESP. You need to say, look, guys, what's going on here? And it's possible you're on a shared IP, and quite a few senders are on shared IPs. The way it works is, if you are sharing a server, a box with some naughty neighbors, if other people are sending email campaigns out through the same server as you are, and they're sending spammy emails, that's going to have negative implications for your email campaigns. So straight away, just talk to your ESP. Say, look, guys, can we move me to a more reputable server? Can you give me a dedicated server? Can you give me something that I can trust that will make sure that my emails get delivered? So right at the top of that triangle, you have IP reputation, and that really sits with whatever company you're using to send your emails. If there's a problem there, pick up the phone, send them an email, and hold them to task on that one. Next level down in the pyramid, you have what's known as domain reputation. Now, domain reputation is becoming increasingly important. Domain reputation is where you can see that your company your company's reputation of a domain your company uses to send emails, which is quite often the same email address or domain you have in your day-to-day emails. How is that considered by the ESPs, the email sending providers? So the Googles and Yahoos, the Outlooks of this world. If you log into Google Postmaster Tools, it has a domain checker in there. And it will tell you whether you have an excellent reputation, a good reputation, or a poor reputation. If you're sending B2B emails and you have low complaint rates, then you should absolutely have an excellent domain reputation. This pyramid, the way we formed it, you will see the reputation trickles up and down. So if you are sending lots of emails for a bad IP, that will affect your domain reputation. If you are sending, if you have a bad domain reputation, that will ultimately start to affect your ESP's IP reputation. So they will come down on you like a ton of bricks, or they should do anyway, and stop your campaigns from going out if you're sending poor quality campaigns. They're doing that as much to protect their own IP reputation as they are to protect your domain reputation. So that's, they're not just doing it to be selfish, they're doing it to help you as well. Because if you start sending out poor quality emails to bad data lists and to people who don't want your emails, they're going to complain. It's going to start affecting your day-to-day email deliverability. It's going to generate that downward cycle I spoke about right at the start, and you want to avoid that. Right at the bottom of this pyramid, you have your mailbox reputation. So your domain reputation is anything that comes from @acme.com, let's say. Your mailbox reputation is something coming specifically from Andrew @acme.com. So that is your individual mailboxes. Now, your mailbox reputation has historically been quite hard to track. It's not something that the ESPs give you information. There's not really a feedback loop on your individual mailboxes. However, adding another tool to the toolkit here, we have something that we use called MailReach. Now, MailReach is a mail warm-up tool. Don't know if you're aware of how mail warm-up works, but essentially when you've got a new mailbox set up, it's like you start the world with a zero credit score, and then over time, as you spend money, you sign up to credit cards, you sign up to credit agreements, your credit score improves as long as you don't damage it by doing anything daft. Mailbox reputation works in exactly the same way. When you set up a new mailbox, you have no reputation. It's a completely new mailbox. Therefore, you're treated with suspicion by the ESPs. Right? Who is Andrew @acme.com? I've got no history of Andrew sending emails from this mailbox. The instinct is instinctive that they will distrust any new emails coming from Andrew. So what a mailbox warm-up tool does, and there's loads out there. We've evaluated and used many. We settled on MailReach. We think it's a great tool, but like I said, there are others out there. What it does is it starts to send emails to a friendly pool of other mailboxes within their kind of their customer group. So it's all done automatically. It's all done by bots, and they ramp it up gradually. So I can show you this one. It's going to last 6 months. There you go. So you can see there's a kind of ramp up there at the start, where on day 1 we're sending out 3 emails, day 2, 7, 9, 11, and that all the way up to about 50 emails a day. Those emails are landing in Gmail, Google Workspace, Outlook mailboxes. If they go into promotions or if they go into spam, they're getting taken out of promotions and spam. If they will be responded to, they will be replied to, they will be flagged, they will be starred, they will be marked as important. They will be giving off all those kind of signals, all those behaviors that, and I'm going to use the word teaches the algorithms. You could say teaches, you could say tricks. I don't mind which, but it teaches the algorithms, the deliverability engines, that you are sending good emails. It's generating conversational history, and what they're looking for more than anything else is a conversation taking place from your emails. Over time, you will get that we've got a 99% reputation score, as you can see here. That's the nice number we want to be going for. 99%, brilliant. That is the mailbox reputation that we're talking about here. Mailbox reputation is very easy to damage if you start sending out poor quality untargeted emails or bulk emails. So the way we do it at Coolia, if we're doing the managed outreach for clients, is if we see that reputation score ever dropping below 95%, which is still a very high threshold, we will stop sending those emails, and we will allow the reputation to repair, because Mailreach is continuing to send those emails and building that reputation back up again. And we will either stop that campaign completely, or we will move onto a second mailbox that we have that's sitting under a separate domain. So in terms of process, it's always good to have that separate mailbox as a fallback, so you can switch between the two of them, and keep your campaigns running at all times. It is a really valuable score, and it also gives you additional insight. So much like Spam Tester has lots of different areas that you can click into. Spam Assassin likes us. We're properly authenticated with SPF, DKIM, DMARC, all that sort of information. So too does Mailreach have additional checks in place. So they can say, okay, well, this domain was created 8 years ago. Domain reputation, we know that's important. Having actually a little bit of context, a little bit of history attached to your domains is really important as well, because a domain that you've had for 8 years isn't a domain that you're just using just to send out spam. It's something that is considered, that has a reputation, that has history. It's something that has value to you. So they're looking for anything, a domain that has over 3 months. The older the domain, the better when you're sending out email. If your domain is a .com or a .co.uk, brilliant, ticks in the box. Spammers don't like .coms and .co.uk because they cost more money. What a spammer is trying to do is send as many emails out from as cheap a domain as possible, as quickly as possible. So, you know, if you've got a good quality, top level domain, that's fantastic. They even look at things like where your domains are registered. So if you used a reputable hosting company like Fast Hosts or Gandhi or any of the big ones, again, tick in the box. There's a load of really cheap, dirty hosting companies out there that spammers use. They go out and they buy cheap domains, and they basically burn their email addresses. They burn their domains. They don't care. So all of these things add up. All of these things are considerations with your email deliverability strategy. And you can see again, all those nice ticks in there. This is all good stuff. This is what you want to see. And you really need to be warming up a mailbox for at least 3 weeks before you even think about sending out an outreach campaign. So that's an important consideration as well. Okay, I'll stop that screen share for now.
Just for reference, Andrew, because that's something where you're looking at that just before you're about to start new campaigns with an inbox. For those that have already got stuff going on and have been using running email campaigns and sort of want to sort of take a look at this, is there anything you can do as a sort of more like an MOT? So you've already got the sort of, you've missed the inbox warm up at the beginning, but you're already in full flow. So what can you do? Take a step back and just make sure you're sort of doing it properly.
Yeah, so the first thing I would always recommend is just fire off an email through whatever solution you're using to send emails to Mail Tester, because that will highlight any big red flags. So you need to make sure. I know I talk a lot about SPF, DKIM, DMARC, these kind of really unhelpful letters, but they are all absolutely essential. That is you saying that you are happy with that email provider using your domain, sending emails in your name. It will flag that if you're on any block lists, if you have any reputational damage, all of those things, one send gives you that tick, 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 which is really helpful. I would always recommend using a mail warm-up tool. So even if you've been using a mailbox and sending out campaigns from a particular email address for months or years, it's charging £50 a month. Do it. It's just for that extra data, that extra insight about where your emails are landing is absolutely essential. Let me just screen share again, Jody. Going back to this one. So going back to the checks. So you can see this is probably a little bit boring because everything's landing in the primary inbox. But you can just say, okay, well, if I've got a problem, if you start to see things landing in spam, and actually, so let's go back. So I did notice. So back here, on the December the 3rd. We did see emails. You see the red dots there. That's when some of our emails did start landing in spam. So we stopped the campaigns going out. But understanding where they were landing in spam, was it Gmail? Clearly was. So Google had an issue there. So I suspect what happened at that time is some of our emails got user complaints. Maybe we had an issue with the targeting. Maybe our data, we didn't cleanse it properly. Something went wrong at that point in time with the process, and it was picked up on it and it's reflected. There's normally a couple of days lag between something going wrong with your sending and it being picked up on here. But you need to be aware of this, because otherwise you just carry on sending out your emails, your campaigns, and you're coming from a position where there's a big data gap. Okay, you might see your open rates falling. And if your open rates are falling, you're probably going to be, so is it my subject line? Is it my template? What is it? What's going on? I can look at this and I know exactly what this is. If your user rates are falling and that's corresponding to these red marks, it's because you started landing in spam. So just stop sending or move to a different domain and different mailbox and continue campaign that way. It's really, really helpful for the analytics. So there's so many variables with mailbox placement and primary placement. Really have as many tools at your fingertips as possible. And as long as you've got these different steps, this process in place where, okay, something's gone wrong. I'm not getting as many responses. I'm not getting as many meetings booked as I previously did. You then go through this checklist. Okay, so mail tester, is anything obvious there? Has somebody in IT deleted an SPF record? Okay, happens surprisingly often. There are these essential verifications that need to take place. Somebody's gone in there, done a spring clean on your DNS, and accidentally removed something vital to email deliverability. Happens all the time. If there's nothing on there, have a look in mail reach. Is it something to do with domain reputation? Is it something to do with mailbox reputation? Check out your IP. Check out, see if you're in any block lists. There's a very set process to troubleshoot these issues. I think the other thing you need to be looking at is always your data. And this is a hard one, because we are all told absolutely all your data should be opted in. It should be, people have come to you, so they want to hear from you, and that's great. And that, in the big picture, is what you should be doing. You should always be trying to bring on board new contacts, new data that are interested in your business, your service offer, and build a pool of really, really engaged contacts that you could be reaching out to. But the reality is, we're in business, and business is about reaching out to people who don't know about you, that have a need for your services, have a need for your product, and you therefore introduce your service and product to those people. If you didn't do that, business would stop very, very quickly. The economic climate would collapse. Business is about reaching out to strangers and saying, hi there, I think we can help you. So there is absolutely a place for cold outreach. Cold outreach starts with the prospecting and the data, finding those relevant contacts. Now, there's loads of tools out there, and they're good tools. Things like Apollo and Zoom and what is it, Meet Alfred. There's Alf Data. There's loads. Their job is to sell you data. That's how they make money. So the more data they sell you, the more money they make. So there's almost a conflict of interest there, because you don't necessarily just want contact data. You want your data to be cleansed, double cleansed, relevant, targeted, everything. You've got a set of criteria. They've got a set of criteria. They'll try and tell you, you're on the same page, but actually there are slightly different agendas at play here. So we would always recommend going back to the data. Take it out there. Apollo, for example, gives you the opportunity to only export verified contacts. Take that with a pinch of salt. Export only verified contacts, and then go to a third-party solution. So we talked about, we use Mailgun as our data verifier. We use Mailgun because we have a partnership with Mailgun, and because they're also an email sender, so they send billions of emails a day. They know what data is good, what data is bad. But there are other tools out there, things like Never Bounce or Zero Bounce. Always verify and run your data as well. And I know that is not the question you asked, Jodie. I apologize, I've rambled on a bit there, but that's critical as well.
And you've mentioned obviously the spam rate that you should be falling below? What sort of on a data perspective? Obviously, people do change and increasingly so, particularly if you're talking to marketeers. There's a lot of transition in jobs. What sort of a typical sort of decay rate, and what's a sort of bounce rate that you should be making sure you fall below?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll talk firstly from a Coolier perspective. So in Coolier, for example, if somebody bounces, we archive them, and you need to be looking at your solution saying, okay, if I see a hard bounce event take place, then I shouldn't be sending this again. So it's kind of self-cleansing as you send out your campaigns. You should be having a bounce rate of less than 1%. You know, a typical bounce rate from a clean campaign where you've verified your data, you've removed accept alls, and I will talk about accept alls in a second. You know, you should be at 0.5% bounce rate. Anything higher than 2% is a flag. Anything higher than 5% bounce rate, and you should not be sending that campaign out full stop. And actually, we stop campaigns going out. We have throttling in place to prevent that because it's protecting the domain reputation. It's so critical. There are different levels of data. So if you were to run a data set through a third-party tool like Neverbounce or Mailgun, the results will come back. You will get a list of hopefully green ticked valid email contacts. These are contacts that they've pinged, they've checked, they've seen emails go out to successfully and been delivered successfully, so they're happy. Those are good emails. You will have the red tick. You know, these are invalid emails. This is bad data. These are honey traps. These are contacts that have moved on. These are that just don't send to these contacts full stop. That's fine. That's nice and clear. Then you have this murky grey area in the middle, which is accept all email addresses. And accept all email addresses are the bane of marketers' lives because you don't know and you can't know whether there's actually a real person sitting behind that mailbox. So, you know, Coolier, we're absolutely, we do this ourselves. If you were to send an email to bibbidi-bobbidi-boo@coolier.ma, that email would not bounce. That email would get diverted into a catch-all mailbox, which somebody checks once every 6 months. So, you know, we have it set up deliberately to make sure that we receive all emails. Now, there are accept all emails out there. So if a person moves on, doesn't matter. It will still go through to that generic mailbox. It will still be received. It will not send a bounce back report. And therefore, they're a bit dangerous. If you have a very high percentage of accept all emails, there is a very high likelihood that your engagement rates are going to suffer because there is nobody sitting behind those mailboxes. If your engagement rates are suffering, if you know you're sending emails and they're not being opened, they're not being responded to, they're not being clicked, you're going to enter that downward cycle so that even your legitimate emails, your legitimate mails are also then going to end up in spam or promotions because you know you're sending emails out to a disengaged audience by accident. So we personally recommend at Coolier you don't send to accept all email addresses. It just reduces that risk and it means you're more likely to move up to that virtuous cycle of deliverability. Cool. So
Right.
does that answer the question? I think it did.
Yeah, and obviously mindful we're sort of running out of time. I want to throw it open for any last questions from the audience. But I guess we've sort of talked a lot about the sort of things not being done well, and the sort of the traps for that, and you know percentages there around bounce rates or spam. I guess what does good look like in terms of performance, whether it's an open rate, a click-through rate, a reply, and what are your sort of tips for maximizing that?
Cool. Okay, so we have for the BD as a service offer that we have at Coolier, we have very clear targets. You know, your open rates should be so between 30 or higher than 30%. Now, if you're getting over 30%, apologies. Oh, we're still got to phone now. Okay, so open rate should be over 30%. In response rates, you're aiming for between 5 and 10%. If you're getting between 5 and 10%, brilliant, it's landing. Those might not be positive responses, by the way. They might be people saying, thanks, I'm not interested. Take me off your list. You know, just not a sale.
Mm.
That's fine. people are responding, you still need to respond to those responses. It's good manners. But also, if you send an email, they respond to say not interested, you say absolutely no problems at all, I'll take you off my list, apologies for inconveniencing you. That's a conversation. You know, EXPs are looking at that going, okay, they had a conversation there, that's good. This is a good sender. It's not just an anonymous mailbox. We're sending out automated emails and no one's sitting behind that mailbox. There are real people here having conversations. Big tick in the box. Oh, I do apologize. I hope I'm not going to go into a coughing fit now. Ideally, if you're getting 5 to 10% positive response rates from your email and your outreach campaigns, 1 to 2% of those should be positive. You know, so yeah, they will convert into meetings. There'll be questions coming back about your service offer. There'll be requests for decks and pitch information, all that sort of thing. So those are kind of the benchmarks you should be aiming for.
Yeah, and I remember you've told us a few of those tips, but definitely making sure you do a quick reply and response. And I guess there's a whole load of responses somewhere in between. I think sometimes people, from a new business perspective, can get focused on the short term leads and opportunities. So if it's not an immediate yes, it can sort of get left unreplied. So I think the key thing is, both for new business best practice, is to respond, keep that conversation lively, show that you're diligent, but also it has a positive impact on your score as well. If anyone's got any questions, I mean, Andrew's got a wealth of knowledge around all things sort of email and marketing, a former B2B marketer of the year. Yeah, we found sort of an invaluable partner for just being able to pose any questions around day-to-day challenges or just best practice around email. So if you do have anything, we've got a few minutes left. If you want to just either drop it in the chat or raise your hand or do an emoji reaction, anything you want to do to flag. But yeah, if you've got any sort of specific questions around email best practice, then please do dive in. I guess sort of I'll just sort of kick off with one of them, which I guess on my Outlook, I've got sort of 365. I've noticed I've just had some folders added considerately by Microsoft. So I have a newsletter folder that appeared, and now stuff is getting shoved in there. There's a social one as well that it sort of collects any LinkedIn updates, but sometimes does actually catch stuff referencing social in that folder. That means I can completely lose sight of emails. Is there any sort of particular watch areas there, or anything that sort of you've got to make sure you avoid to sort of avoid ending up in those sort of automated inboxes that are being added?
Yeah, absolutely. And you will find with this, it's Gmail leads. Gmail's had the promotions folder for years now. Outlook tends to catch up with these things, and this is them trying to do what Google have been doing. If you send out an email with lots of images and lots of links and lots of click here and do this, it will inevitably end up in the newsletter or the promotions folder, because it is so clearly a newsletter or promotion. We strongly recommend staying well clear of that. So for outreach in particular, plain text, strip back the images, strip back the links, remove all those social icons in your signature. Nobody clicks them anyway. You don't need to have your web address in the bottom of your email and your signature strip. They know your web address. They've just received an email from you. They just need to look at your email to see your web address. You don't need to put your email address in the bottom of email. They'll click reply. So strip out all of that superfluous stuff. Plain text emails are emails that are coming from a person going to a person. As soon as you start sending HTML heavy emails, they're perceived as coming from a department, whether that's the sales department or the marketing department. People, generally speaking, respond better to emails coming from people. So that you will get better responses. You will find that your emails move to the primary inbox more because you are stripping back the conversation. Keep things informal, remove the industry jargon. Something else that's quite important, have a look at, there's another tool. Let me just do, am I still doing a screen share or not? I don't think I am. Another really useful free tool we recommend is Folderly. Just Google Folderly spam words checker. Really helpful. There you go. You can see that here. So it's just a page where you can put in text, and it will go in there and it will say, okay, well, these words you shouldn't be using them. Obvious one there, Viagra, cell, but it's flagged over there on the right hand side. But it's a lot of even more subtle things like, just going to move that, go on. You know, income, offer, earn, call, more is a promotion. If you overuse the word more, it will end up in the promotions. It will end up in one of those category folders. So it's a great tool. Use it. Ideally, it says spam words. It's spam all promotional words. If you overuse any of those terms, and it is amazing how common day parlance can be considered overly promotional. Run it through there. Try and get those spam words down to 0 before even sending out an email, because that will help ensure that you stay away from the promotions folder.
I imagine there'll be a few added from the ChatGPT email dictionary, as elevate seems to be a word that appears on 90% of the lead emails I receive. So I think ChatGPT has its favorite words that it keeps using. So I imagine, just as a word of warning, if you do use ChatGPT for doing any of this stuff, yeah, be careful for those words that are a bit of a call out.
Yeah, and it's always evolving. It's constantly being updated by the algorithms. What was a spam word 2 days ago is no longer a spam word, and it's been replaced by this or this. So keep checking it. Don't just take it as read.